parasha discussed the construction of the Mishkan and all the kalim, all the utensils, all the vessels used in the Mishkan. This week's parasha, in the main, discusses the making of the Bigdei Kahuna, the garments of the Kohen. And it says who carried out the work. Both in last week's parasha, it says, Kol Chachmei Lev, right? All those who are wise of heart. Okay? That was the requirement. It doesn't mention that they had any done necessarily been through the Tetzaveh school of art or crafts or anything like that. It says there had to be a Chacham Lev. I talked about Kol Chachmei Lev, Hashem Yisiv Ruach Chachma. And the point is made even stronger in next week's parasha, where it says, Re'ei karosi v'shem Betzalel ben Uri v'enchor lamata Yehuda. V'amalei so ruach elokim, I will fill him with the Spirit of God. V'chochmo v'svuno v'das v'chol melach. Wisdom, understanding, inspiration, das, and question was what das means, intelligence, inspiration, chol malach. And you see that was given to him, and then Rashi, the psukim carry on, and it says, V'ani hinei nosati itoi. I have given with him as Aliyah ben Achisamach lemati Don, Aliyah the son of Achisamach of the tribe of Don.
Which parsha is this?
This is in Parshas Kisisa, next week's parsha. Kisisa. Uvelev kol chacham leiv nosati chachma. And in the heart of every wise-hearted person, I have put wisdom. Now, the Gemara in Brachas, Daf Nun Hey, it's a very, somewhat strange Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, said Rabbi Yochanan, Eina Kodesh Baruch Hu noisin chachma, Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't give chachma only to somebody who has chachma. Shenema, and this he quotes a pasuk in Donia. Yoiv chachmasa lachakim. He gives wisdom to those who are wise. Umindor liyodu bina, and das to those who know bina. That's the memra, the quotation of Rabbi Yochanan. Shomer Rav Tachlifa Ba'amarova. Rav Tachlifa, who came from the west, meaning from Eretz Yisrael. Va'omra Kamei de Rabavo. He said him before Rabavo, who was in Eretz Yisrael. Omalei Atun Mehos. I'm sorry, the other way around. Rabavo was in Bavel, and Rabbi Yochanan was in Eretz Yisrael. So Rav Tachlifa came from Eretz Yisrael, and he said over Rabbi Yochanan's what Rabbi Yochanan said. And before Rabbi Vo, Omalei, so Rabbi Vo said to Rav Tachlifa, Atun mehosa masnisula. You learn it out from that pasuk in Doniel. You don't have to go that far. Anan mehocha masninana. We learn it out from here. What is that pasuk? This pasuk. Dersiv overleiv kol chacham leiv nosati chacham. In the heart of every wise-hearted person, I have put chacham, placed chacham.
That's from the Chumash or from
that is that pasuk. Leiv kol chacham leiv nosati chacham. That's in next week's parasha, Parshas Kisisa. So let us understand. So the obvious Gemara, the obvious kasha we have on this Gemara, which Chaim Velozhna asks, is 1 second. It says, whoever's wise will receive wisdom. So how did he get the first wisdom? How did he start off? Right? How do you get the initial wisdom? You've got to start off. You've got to have a... And also, another point is, generally when we speak of somebody who's wise, where is the seat of wisdom? In the heart? Heart is the feelings of a person. Where's the normal seat of wisdom? In the brain. So what is somebody who's a chacham leiv, who's wise of heart? What is wisdom of the heart? So Chaim Volozhin says in Reikis. He says, you know what Chochmas Halev is? Wisdom of the heart. That's Yiras Shamayim. Fear of God. Why? Because a person can be wise, right? But if it doesn't affect his heart, right? His wisdom is not worth anything. There's a famous, I don't know if you've heard of it, I've mentioned this a number of times maybe. There was a famous English philosopher by the name of Bertrand Russell. He was, apparently, I don't know, I've never read his philosophies, I don't know if I should, because I don't know. No, he wasn't Jewish. Anyway, he was a tremendous philosopher, tremendous thinker. However, in his moral life, he was, maybe in a nice way to put it, he was disgusting. Right?
Don't do as I do.
Well, 1 second. So he said, they asked him, how can you reconcile your tremendous philosophies with the way you act, the way you behave? So his answer was, if I was a mathematician, would I be a triangle? What does that mean? That his wisdom, whatever wisdom he had no effect, had no bearing whatsoever, and it didn't require from him whatsoever that it should affect the way he acted. He had wisdom is one hand, and the way he acted the other. In fact, the Gemara says that Aristotle, the famous Greek philosopher, about the Rambam, I think, said about him that among the Goyim there was no person wiser than him. He was the greatest wise man among the Goyim. I think it's Yerushalmi, which brings down, it says that one time his disciples, Aristotle's disciples, saw him taking a rabbit, a live rabbit, and tearing it apart alive and eating it.
I haven't eaten lunch yet, though.
I'm sorry. Neither had Aristotle either, right? And
He wants you to eat your lunch differently. That's what I'm saying this.
He took this rabbit and he
It's
tore
more
it
about
apart alive
Nebuchadnezzar.
and he started eating
It's
it.
more about Nebuchadnezzar like that.
Right. Anyway, so I think it's Yerushalmi who says it. Anyway, so the Talmidim, the disciples of Aristotle, asked him, "Our master, how do you reconcile this behavior with your great philosophies?" So he says, "Leave me alone. When I'm eating, I'm not Aristotle. I'm Aristotle when I'm thinking, when I'm thinking about philosophy. But when I'm eating, I'm not Aristotle." In other words, there was a difference. We have a pasuk which we say every day in Oleinu. It's a quote from Parshas Re'eh. V'yoda'ato hayoim v'ashevoiso el avavecha. You should know today, right? And you should imprint it upon your heart. Right? Bali Musa say there can be necessarily a big, even though the distance between the heart and the brain may be not more than, let's say, a foot or so, right? But figuratively, the distance between a person's brain and a person's heart can be a huge distance. You may never even get there, right? Meaning, what a person knows may not necessarily have a clear bearing on what he actually does, on the way it affects his heart. So says Reb Chaim Volozhin, a person has to have Yiras Shamayim, meaning, and says Reb Chaim that Lemaisa, that Yiras Hashem, Yiras Shamayim, is considered a Chochmah, because that's what the Pasuk says. Uveleiv kol chacham leiv nosati Chochmah. He has to have the initial wisdom, that is the wisdom of the heart, i.e. his Yiras Shamayim. He has to have Yiras Shamayim, meaning he knows what to do with his wisdom is to imprint it upon his heart. I'll just go take this a little further as a hesber in this Reb Chaim Volozhin, which I heard from Moshe Shapira Shlita. It's a little bit touching on Kabbalah, but it's not going. As we know, a human being, has 3 halokim to his, I call it to his neshama. we will see in a second that there are actually three separate parts. But there's three chalokim to his neshama. There's nefesh, ruach, and neshama. And nefesh, even animals have. You have nefesh habehemis. Any living creature has a nefesh. However, only human beings, which is be'etzem, their intelligence, has a neshama. And a ruach as well, a human being, because he has a nefesh and he also has a neshama, he also has a ruach as well. And I'll explain. Nefesh means thought processes. Right? Even an animal has thought processes. We may call it instinct. But the animal will be able to, when he sees, let's say, give an example, a deer, when it sees a lion, right, its instinct will be to run away, meaning there is some thought process which goes through its mind, right, which tells it, run away. However, that is basically very primitive and is not contingent on having a neshama. And when I mean a neshama, I mean a neshama which was put into a human being, which is a chelek elokah mimah, something spiritual. So the nefesh, which is the intelligence, whatever intelligence an animal has, is not a ruchniistic azach. It's a part of his human, it's part of his physical makeup. A human being, however, was given a higher purpose. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu instilled in a human being a neshama. A neshama, which is a chelek elokah mimah, which is given as a part, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu instilled in a person a spiritual part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's tselem elokim, part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's spirituality, HaKadosh Baruch Hu put in every single human being. Derech agav, even God have that neshama. Maybe not on the same level as Jews, but even God have neshama. Because the person's intelligence, human intelligence, is a manifestation of a person's neshama. And that's what Chazal say in Chumash Bereishis, in Parshas Bereishis. It says, "Vayipach be'apov." HaKadosh Baruch Hu created man. Vayipach be'apov, nefesh ruach chaya. Right? Which the Targum translates ruach chaya, nefesh chaya. Vayipach be'apov, nefesh chaya, which the Targum translates as ruach mamalala. Means the power of speech, which is the most pronounced manifestation of a person's intelligence, right? That came with the neshama. That was the neshama. Now, the tafkid of a human being, and especially us Yidden, is to use our neshama, which is seated in the brain, to control our lives, to control our hearts. On the other hand, we have a body as well. And the nefesh, which is seated in our chumrius, traditionally, according to the Sfarim, it says in the koved, in the liver of a person, meaning the person's physical needs, his physical lust, is seated in the person's liver. That's where the nefesh is. The nefesh of the person wants him to try and make him as physical as possible. Whereas the person's neshama wants to make him as spiritual as possible. And in fact, if a person uses his seichel by itself without any physical effect on him, he will have pure thought, which is entirely stemming from spirituality. And that's a person's seichel. A person uses his seichel purely without being affected by any physicality. You will have pure thought. That's a person's seichel. Now you've got these two things. You've got on the one hand the neshama wanting to be spiritual, and the nefesh wanting to be physical. They meet in the heart, and that is basically what I mean by the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara. the good part of the person's thoughts, drawing him to spirituality, is the Yetzer Tov. And the bad part, which is drawing him to physicality, is the Yetzer Hara. And they meet in the heart. And that where they meet together, and they struggle together, who's going to struggle for domination, that's the right word. For domination, that is in the heart. And that's called the Ruach. Ruach is something like a wind. It's constantly in flux. So you've got the two of them are constantly in flux. Nefesh and the Neshama in flux in the heart, in the Ruach. Somebody who is a Chacham Lev is using his Chochmah, stemming from his Neshama, to control his heart, meaning, as opposed to allowing the Nefesh to control his heart, his physicality, he's allowing his spirituality, his Seichel to control the heart. So he is the one who fulfills V'yodata Hayoim V'ashavos Ha'elev. What kind of Chochmah was required to build the Mishkan? It was, Chazal say, it was the Maisa, in order to be able to make all the different utensils, even somebody who may have been well trained as a craftsman would not necessarily have been able to do it. Why? Because there were certain things which were almost supernaturally made. One thing we came up this morning was that the number of things like the Paroches in the Mishkan, the Choshen and the Ephod in the Big Kahuna were made of Maaseh Choshev. Rashi explains what's Choshev mean? A skilled weaver. But Rashi said, what was the skilled weaving? That you had when you weave something, by virtue of the way things are woven, is that you weave one picture on a weave, automatically there has to be the same picture on one side or the other. So Rashi says, Maaseh Choshev was a way of weaving that you got out two separate pictures, one picture on one side and one picture on the other.
The same thing?
No, because you had a picture of an eagle on one side and a lion on the other. So how are you going to do such a thing? So he says what they did was it was made of a double layer. But the kunst was that those double layers, two layers, were interwoven one with the other. How are you going to do such a thing? It was that's one example. It's something it needed supernatural skill. It was done through skill, correct? It was done by human hand, but it needed supernatural skill. Another example, it says that the women, they made the goat's hair, skins, the goat skins, the material, right, of one of the coverings over the Mishkan was made of Urios Izi, goat's hair. It says that the women, when they made it, Tovu Es Izi, they twined the threads directly from the backs of the goats. Meaning, as they plucked the goat's hair from the backs of the goats, they straight away twined it into the threads.
Not on the back? I was imagining it was on the back.
No, they couldn't have to be attached. You had to separate. I understand that means you had to separate the threads from one from another. But anyway, that's how they made it, which is also a tremendous skill. Normally, the thing is you'd have to take the thread, put all the threads together, and then afterwards make a number of things. The way the menorah was made, right, was also something supernatural. Even Chazal say, the Gur Aryeh explains in Parshas Baloischa, there were two supernatural things to it. One is that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't even know what it looked like. Even with all the instructions, he couldn't picture in his mind what it looked like. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, gave him a Kamin Menorah Shel Eish. Maybe in today's terms, it means a virtual picture. Right? A virtual picture of what the menorah looked like. So he knew what he was aiming for. But even afterwards, right? Now this menorah had to be made out of one talent of gold. All the pieces together. Right? Now, how are you going to, I mean, maybe nowadays with tremendous science, with computer calculation, you can come out exactly how much gold was needed to come out, that the end product would be 1 talent of gold. Not just to take 1 talent of gold and chop it up and come out with the menorah. It had to be, the end product had to be weigh a talent of gold. So work out how much gold you're going to need for that. That's a tremendous calculation. It said Moshe Rabbeinu, he couldn't manage that either. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, Kaviyachol, threw it into the fire, the gold, told him, if we take a talent of gold, throw it into the fire, and a gold candelabrum came out, and there was left just up to Betzalel just to do the finishing touches to it, because it said that Betzalel made it, so there had to be a kiyum of making it. Anyway, throughout all the construction and the making of all the parts of the Mishkan, there was supernatural skill required. And therefore, it was only somebody who was utilizing his wisdom in the proper way. He was a chacham leiv. He was using his wisdom to control his heart. Chazal say also about, that's the difference between tzaddikim and rishoyim. That tzaddikim libom b'rshusam. Their mind is in control of their heart. They are fully in control of what they're doing. As opposed to rishoyim, that the other way around. Hey b'rshus libom, meaning they're under the control of their lust, their desires, their physical desires. They have no control over themselves. So that's what Chaim Elojman says, that's Yiras Hashem. Yiras Hashem means the person knows what to do with his wisdom. He's aware that Kosh Baruch has given him wisdom, and he knows what to do with it. So he's a Chacham Leiv. So those who were acquired for themselves, normally we say through wisdom, a person has an intelligence, has the power to absorb knowledge. These are things which are inborn in a person. However, Chochmas Haleiv, wisdom of the heart, is something which a person acquires himself. Because the Gemara says, Hakol b'dei shomayim, chutz mi'yirah shomayim. We learn out from the Pasuk. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Klal Yisrael, what is HaKadosh Baruch Hu require from you? Kiyim le'yirah, except for fearing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I mean, a person can have wisdom, but he won't be able to utilize it in the proper way. But a person has Chochmas Haleiv, he uses his wisdom, utilizes in the proper way to control his heart. Such a person, if he's using his Chochmah properly, then such a person is worthy of more Chochmah, because he's going to utilize that in the proper way. And specifically, for those artisans which were chosen to build the Mishkan and all the utensils and all the Big Kahuna which went with it, they had to have that acquired Chochmas Haleiv. So we have to use, and what is the Chochmah which we can utilize, we have to utilize to be able to win the battle, to be able to control our hearts? That's Torah. Barosi Yetzorah, Barosi Torah Tavlin. The Tavlin, the way, the Chochmah which we can use to be able to control ourselves, that Kosh Baruch Hu, and in that way Klal Yisrael are privileged over all the other nations, that we have, Kosh Baruch Hu gave us as a gift, the Kalim, the right Chochmah to be able to use that to be able to control our hearts, and we'll be able to win the battle of the Yitzhak.